When I tied the knot with Jerry, I was lucky to inherit some property from my grandparents. They advised me to manage it wisely for our future, emphasizing the importance of keeping it a secret, even from Jerry. Their belief was that having a discreet source of passive income, solely under my control, would guarantee my financial stability. Regrettably, Jerry often disregards boundaries, especially concerning our belongings and finances. For example, he once attempted to reallocate gifts I purchased for my parents, giving them to his parents to improve his image. This behavior unsettled me, particularly his negative reaction when I confronted him about it. Recently, I faced a far more troubling incident. I discovered that $22,000 had been withdrawn from an account I managed for our living expenses. This account was intended to supplement Jerry's contributions to our household, and I couldn't recall authorizing such a large withdrawal. The only plausible explanation was that Jerry had taken the money. When I confronted him, he casually admitted that he had lent the money to his mother, Kayla, who was experiencing some issues. He did this without consulting or informing me beforehand. I was taken aback, not only due to the significant amount but also because it highlighted a serious lack of communication and respect for our shared financial decisions. This incident forced me to reevaluate our relationship. If our marriage lacks mutual respect and openness, particularly concerning finances, perhaps it's time to rethink our future together. The idea that one partner's income automatically belongs to the other without discussion is not a sustainable foundation for a marriage. If this trend persists, we may have to confront the prospect of separation. Although the funds originally belonged to me and were earned through hard work, and while we still have some savings, the loss isn't financially devastating. If Kayla was genuinely in need, I understand the importance of helping her. However, I would have preferred a simple discussion first. The account is shared, after all. If Jerry had withdrawn the money from a personal account he established before we married, I wouldn't have been as upset. But taking such a significant amount from our joint account without discussion felt like a betrayal of trust. When I expressed my discontent, Jerry appeared annoyed and dismissed my feelings. He reluctantly promised to inform me before making any significant financial decisions in the future. He then excused himself to the bathroom, leaving me feeling unsettled. It wasn't like the early days of our marriage when Jerry would truly listen and appreciate my input. Is this how a marriage evolves? A few days later, I went to my in-laws' house to return a package mistakenly delivered to us. My mother-in-law, Amy, welcomed me warmly and invited me in for tea. Though I intended to just drop off the package, I accepted her invitation. While there, I noticed several lavish items around the house: high-end cosmetics, trendy clothing, and wellness products. Amy mentioned in passing that all these were gifts from Jerry. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. The missing $22,000 had been spent not out of necessity but on luxury items. The idea that Jerry had lent money to his mother for emergencies suddenly seemed like a serious exaggeration. This misuse of funds raised doubts not only about our financial partnership but also about the respect and communication within our marriage. As I quietly sipped my tea, the atmosphere shifted. My in-laws' smiles faded, and they looked at me with a strange mixture of fear and accusation. Amy's tone became confrontational as she remarked, "My son is such a wonderful and generous boy, always buying gifts for me, but what about you as his wife? Are you taking good care of him? There seems to be an issue. I heard from Jerry that you've been giving him a hard time for using the money to help me." It became evident that Jerry had portrayed himself as a victim to his parents, a good son simply assisting his mother in need. This explained their fearful and defensive demeanor toward me. The realization drained my last bit of patience, not only with my in-laws but also with Jerry. I never anticipated such a lack of support and understanding in my marriage, and the thought of divorce began to feel increasingly plausible. I started picturing a life after divorce, envisioning a return to my parents' home. It was a two-story house over 32 years old, built before my brother was born. It had once comfortably housed our family of 5, but now it mostly stood empty, becoming impractical for my aging parents, who struggled with mobility. Although the house had been modified with handrails, its spacious layout had become more of a challenge than a comfort. A single-story home would be far more suitable for their needs. With the financial security from my passive income, I realized I could renovate their home into something more accessible and comfortable for them. This thought filled me with determination and relief, prompting me to call my parents to discuss my decision to divorce and my plans to remodel their house. Surprisingly, my parents weren't taken aback by the news. Their calm reaction reinforced my choice. It seemed they understood my desire for a fresh start. When I mentioned the idea of renovating their home, I could hear genuine joy in their voices. "We're so grateful you're considering rebuilding the house for us." "Thank you," they said. They assured me that even if they couldn't live there much longer, it wouldn't be a problem since I could eventually take over the house, which would be financed by my own income. "Well, I'll start planning it gradually," I responded, feeling uplifted by their encouragement. "Just take it easy and don't overexert yourself," they urged, their words instantly brightening my mood. As I started to plan the renovation of my parents' home, it felt like the beginning of a new journey, an opportunity for both them and myself. While I awaited a reply from the construction firm, Jerry unexpectedly confronted me, his fury evident. "How could you use our savings to build a house without telling me anything?" he bellowed, slamming his fist on the coffee table. His voice rose, completely disregarding my emotions. "My parents will be residing in the new home," I stated firmly, trying to remain calm. "That's absurd," Jerry yelled, his face flushed. "That house is meant for my parents." He insisted that, since he considered the money as shared assets, his parents had equal rights to the property. "Are you seriously planning to squeeze 5 people into that cramped one-story house? Just give me the house," he insisted, pounding the table harder with each word. Worried about how much more his reaction would escalate if he found out about the passive income one had kept hidden, I realized it was time to come clean. "Honestly, I have passive income," I admitted, feeling the weight of my grandparents' trust. "It comes from the real estate they gifted me, and I used that income to fund the renovation. Not a single cent came from our joint savings." The guilt of breaking my grandparents' promise to keep the secret gnawed at me, but I felt I had no choice. As I explained, Jerry's anger intensified, his face contorted with rage, his shoulders trembling, and his fists pounding the table even more. "What kind of wife hides her income from her husband? You spend my money but shield your own with secrets," he yelled, his words cutting deep. His reaction laid bare the core issues in our marriage, a complete absence of trust, respect, and partnership. The underlying problems had been simmering for too long, and now they were impossible to ignore. "I'll take the house as part of the divorce," Jerry sneered, his arrogance leaving me stunned. "Any house built during our marriage is mine too. I'm the head of the family, and if you defy me, I'll divorce you." I looked at him in disbelief. How had I spent so many years with someone who could so easily disregard my feelings and contributions? The passive income had been intended as a safety net for our future, if his income fell short, or if something prevented me from working. It was meant to safeguard both of us, not create division. Now I understood why my grandparents had advised me to keep it a secret. They must have seen something in Jerry long before I did. I had intended to share my passive income with Jerry when the moment felt right, but after everything that had transpired, I felt no inclination to spend that money on him. Frustrated, I stood up and left the house, needing to escape the stifling atmosphere. I spent the night at a business hotel to clear my mind and consider my next steps. When I returned home the following morning, Jerry was waiting for me with a sly, unsettling grin. He approached with a sheet of paper he had been hiding, divorce papers, already filled out. "You're lying about your passive income, aren't you?" he taunted. "You made that up to cover for stealing from our shared savings." His unfounded accusations were exhausting. Despite my openness about the passive income from my grandparents, no matter how much I insisted on the truth, Jerry remained entrenched in his own version of events, refusing to believe me. "I'm telling you the truth. I have passive income," I reiterated, but I could see he was uninterested in hearing it. His lack of trust and respect was the breaking point. It became painfully clear that this marriage provided none of the support or partnership I craved. The way forward was now unavoidable. With a smug smile, Jerry shoved the divorce papers into my hands and said, "You'll let me know when my parents can move into the house, right?" He patted my shoulder as if this were all a joke, then walked out the door, humming as he mentioned he was off for a drink. In that instant, everything clicked. Jerry had concealed his contempt for me throughout our marriage. He had never genuinely valued my feelings or respected my perspective. The realization was painful, but it also brought clarity and liberation. I didn't hesitate. I packed my belongings right then, completed the divorce papers, and left the house for good. I temporarily moved in with my parents and explained the situation to them. We agreed that I would stay until the new house was finished. The next day, I noticed my phone filled with missed calls from Jerry. When he called again, I decided to pick up, hoping it would be our final conversation. "Oh, hey, all your stuff is gone," he said impatiently, sounding perplexed by my actions. "What's going on? Why is he panicking?" He had been the one pushing for the divorce. "We're getting divorced, Jerry," I replied calmly. It's normal for me not to stay. I won't be coming back, so feel free to use the empty space however you like. There was a pause on the other end. Maybe for the first time, Jerry realized I had resources he couldn't control. Suddenly, his tone shifted. His voice took on an unusually sweet quality, one I had never heard from him before. Hey, could you let my parents live in the new house? He asked, almost pleading. I hung up without a second thought. I had finally moved on. I didn't care if I had to live with his parents. Please, Jerry, I said, stunned. I already mentioned that it's a small one-story house meant as a surprise for my parents. I reminded him, incredulous at his suggestion. It was outrageous for him to propose giving away a house to which he had contributed nothing, treating it as though it were his to dispose of. His reckless dismissal of the situation left me momentarily speechless. You don't care about the savings at all, do you? Jerry pressed on, oblivious to my mounting annoyance. You have no idea how much I stressed over the money I saved as your allowance and for our living expenses. His words only solidified my resolve. His understanding of our finances and relationship was entirely warped. Moving forward without him was no longer a choice. It was essential. I tried to explain the effort I put into managing our finances and how I had struggled to make ends meet, but he brushed it aside, dismissing the importance of my sacrifices. That doesn't pertain to the situation at hand, he replied coldly. You're careless with money and leave the hard work to others, all while presenting yourself to your parents as if you did everything by yourself. I confronted him about how he always tried to take credit for my labor. His sudden silence only fueled my frustration. It became evident that he wanted to present himself as the mastermind behind everything, aiming to give away the house I built for my parents to his own, exploiting my sincerity for his own gain. His behavior was shallow, manipulative, and utterly offensive. In the end, you're merely trying to exploit my goodwill and claim what isn't yours, I stated firmly, my voice steady. There is no excuse for trampling on my feelings and intentions like this. I will not hand over the house I poured my heart into for my parents just so you can show off. Jerry raised his voice, possibly out of desperation. Husbands and wives are supposed to support each other. I'll just tell them you built it. Let's be real, we're no longer a married couple, are we? I interrupted him. We're basically strangers now, remember, I already filed for divorce? His expression shifted, realizing that the boundaries I had set were final. On the day Jerry handed me those divorce papers, he may have believed he had the upper hand, but now he understood differently. I submitted the divorce documents to the city office. Although Jerry had initiated the divorce, he seemed shocked when faced with the reality of our separation. You filed already? Why are you surprised when you were the one who wanted the divorce? I asked, incredulous. Oh, I didn't think you'd actually go through with it. Let's start fresh. We can talk things over and be a good couple this time, he begged, seemingly oblivious to the seriousness of the situation. How could he even suggest that? This was a man who had squandered our savings and belittled me to the bitter end. Reconciliation was utterly out of the question. No, thank you. Please send my regards to your parents, I replied cheerfully before ending the call. The following day, my phone buzzed incessantly with voicemails and messages from Jerry, still insisting we should get back together. His persistence was both puzzling and unwelcome. His repeated attempts at reconciliation only reinforced my decision to move on. Jerry professed his love for me and talked about starting over, but I could sense that his true interest lay in my assets, not in our relationship. To sever ties completely, I blocked all communication from him and his family. Meanwhile, the construction of the new house was complete, and my parents and I moved in. We now enjoyed a comfortable life in the home I built, enveloped in tranquility and happiness. Some time later, I encountered a mutual friend who knew Jerry and shared the news of our divorce. My friend offered supportive words and filled me in on Jerry's situation. Apparently, he had abruptly quit his job, claiming he no longer needed to work hard because he had acquired real estate. When his company couldn't reach him, they were left scrambling. The next day, Jerry attempted to rescind his resignation, but his bosses, frustrated by his sudden absence, demanded an explanation. Unable to admit that he had been relying on my income, Jerry fabricated a story about his situation. Eventually, the truth of our divorce came to light, exposing his lies. His company refused to rehire him, realizing he had tried to manipulate circumstances for his benefit. Ironically, the man who once ridiculed my passive income now found himself in a precarious situation. He returned to live with his parents, who were understandably upset, and is now struggling to find a new job, his reputation tainted by his dubious exit from his last position. As for me, life has progressed positively. I'm living with my parents in the house I built, working at a job I love, and enjoying my life. The passive income one had once saved for our future together will now be used to support those who have always been there for me. This shift in circumstances has brought me a renewed sense of peace, affirming that moving on was indeed the best choice for my well-being. Thanks for watching. See you again in the next video. Stay stunned.